Hello, so today I wanted to suggest some reading recommendations for spring. Spring is such a weird time, especially in Alberta where I live. It's a weird balance between it'll be 19 degrees Celsius one day and then snowing the next, which is literally the weekend we just had. First on the list, I'm going to suggest Emma by Jane Austen. I recently, as in within the last couple of days, just read this one, and I will say it brought light and joy. Austen is certainly a household favorite in the fact that she has great character work, really fun plot lines, and the punchline of her jokes always tend to be her main characters, but she doesn't shy away from the more endearing aspects of them either, so you just wind up with this very full character work. It really humanizes all of the characters that she's working with, and really great and apt viewpoints on high society. Next on the list, I would have to recommend Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So I would recommend this solely on the fact that Shadow and Bone season 1 from Netflix is coming soon, so this would be the time to catch up. It's a really quick read. It's a lot of fun in terms of like the Grisha world and the Grishaverse. So no time like the present, might as well get the first book read before season 1 comes out, and we are quickly approaching that. Next, I would recommend Little Women. Little Women is one of my favorite books of all time. The relationship between the sisters is honestly at the level of kind of the character work that I was talking about with Jane Austen. Originally published into 4, I believe, separate works, Little Women is the sort of bind up and omnibus version of Alcott's work. So Little Women, if you don't know, follows 4 sisters as they journey between the age of adolescence into womanhood and everything that that entails. And Jo is 10 out of 10, one of the best characters I read in classical works. Next, I would recommend Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is one I read recently, and it was just a lot of fun. So romance is always a genre that I'm not completely comfortable with, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I don't read it often, so I'm not sure what my own tastes are. But I would qualify Get a Life, Chloe Brown as a really fun mix of like Bridget Jones sort of banter mixed with just like a really wholesome romance. And there are steamy scenes, don't get me wrong. So this was just a really nice, fun, light read about a young woman who deals with chronic pain, and because of that, it has inhibited her from doing a lot of what she's always thought she's wanted to do or supposed that her life should look like. So after a near-death accident, right in the first couple of pages, she decides that she needs to get a life and creates a list and needs to check off all of those things within that list. And then we meet Red, who is the superintendent in her building, and he is going to help her with that. Next, I would recommend The Witch's Heart. This, again, is another recent read. Last year, I read Circe and Song of Achilles. Song of Achilles is actually back on my TBR because I'd like to reread it this spring. But The Witch's Heart is just it's very on par with that. So if you did enjoy those books, I can't recommend this enough. This follows a witch that is semi-banished into the other side of the world, into the human world, and befriends Loki and falls in love with him. She goes on to have 3 children, a wolf, a serpent, a regular child, and it is just fascinating. It is so fun and weird and feminist. It was great. I had a wonderful time with it, and I would recommend this for the spring. Last on the list, I would recommend Cast. So I have read this both in audiobook form and the physical form. Physical form being that I could like underline and absorb things just like a little bit better and do some research for all of the sort of notes and resources that they use. However, I will say springtime is when the weather gets better. We all start going for walks. We go to the park. I would really recommend this audiobook for the first time consumption of Cast. I think it's a lot more digestible. It sounds like I don't want to say it reads heavy because it really doesn't, but it certainly reads heavier versus the audiobook is just a great way to absorb it the first time and to kind of wrap your mind around the entire idea of exactly what Wilkerson is trying to do. And then I definitely recommend, as the second time go around, to read the physical copy so you can absorb more, do more research, put little sticky notes where you need to, where you feel you're lacking in knowledge, and you can journey further down the rabbit hole, because this really is a wild ride of a book. But I really can't recommend it enough. I think a lot of people get scared away from the page count. It's just shy of 400 pages from the heavy sort of context that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the caste system and the origins of racial inequality within it and societal inequality, and that usually ties in with racial inequality and economic inequality. So it is heavier work, but honestly, put that audiobook on, go for a walk, you'll get through it in no time. It honestly is absolutely 110% worth the effort. So that is all of my spring recommendations, books I've been loving recently that I think would really fit the general aura of spring and sunshine mixed with wetness and cold, just the kind of limbo period before we finally get to summer. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any recommendations of what you've been reading, leave it in the comments below. I'm so excited to sort of broaden my horizons this year with my reading.